Hey, LinkedIn. Welcome to this edition of Upwork's Hot Takes. I'm Kelly Monahan, Managing Director of the Upwork Research Institute. As a research institute, we're not just obsessed with data, but we're becoming equally obsessed with bringing dialogue to you as a community on the hottest topics that we're all facing as we seek to navigate the future of work. To that end, I invite you, those of you who are joining us live, join us on the chat, introduce yourself, let us know where you stand on this side of the debate and any questions you have. We'll do our best to try to keep up and certainly want to welcome new members to this community. Today, we're going to actually talk about and debate a topic that's really close to my heart, and that is around education. And there's two trends that I think it's really important to help ground the context of this debate today. The very first, as we look at the United States and really begin to analyze college enrollment, we see a steady decline that's been happening over the last 10 years. And not just that, this other thing that's somewhat alarming is that the half-life of skills, when you think about you go and obtain a skill, how valuable is that in the labor markets? Economists told us several years ago the half-life was typically around 10 years. Today, because of technologies like generative AI as an example, economists now tell us that that half-life of skills is about 5 years. And so that means you as a worker or you as a leader are under tremendous pressure to keep up with all this reskilling that's happening. And there's one more data point I want to leave you with before we turn to the panelist. It's what the World Economic Forum is calling a reskilling emergency. You see, they predict by the year 2030, over 1 billion people are going to have to be reskilled in order to maintain their employment and really keep that job safety. And so the question I get asked all the time is how do we become future proof as a workforce, or those of you who have children, what's the right path forward? And today I am delighted to be really joined by a panel of expertise with maybe different opinions on what that right answer is. But I think these different perspectives actually give us probably closer to the truth and a way forward as we begin to really solve this pressing skills gap that's before us. So I want to invite each of my panelists to introduce themselves. We're here to talk about our hot take today is college worth it? And maybe even more deeply, the question underneath that is how do we begin to close the skills gap within our organizations? So Professor Murdoch, I'd love just to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and really just explain to us where you are on this side of the debate today.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
Yeah.
On faculty at Columbia University Teachers College. I agree with what Kelly said at the beginning, 100%, but you go to a 4-year school. By the time you're out, if you go for a specific thing, is it even going to be there by the time the 4 years are over? One of the main things I always say is learn how to learn. That's the most important skill you're going to acquire. I don't think we're in an era where you're going to get a degree and that's it, and you walk away and it's done. I think we're all continuous learners. So that's my opinion.
Scott, I want to turn it over to you. We're so thrilled to have you here. Do you mind just giving an introduction and where you stand on this debate?
Absolutely. Thanks, Kelly, and hello all. I'm Scott, and I lead instructor and content strategy at Udemy, and I went to school at UC Berkeley. Whether college is worth it or not really depends on what you're looking for. If you want to become a doctor or an engineer, it's really challenging to do that without a college degree, of course. On the other hand, we're seeing many jobs that don't require a college degree to be successful. And we're seeing more and more companies willing to drop college requirements from some of their job posts. So in our space, we're seeing professional and IT certifications growing in importance. Certifications, of course, enable learners to access high-paying jobs directly, and they can acquire these skills from platforms like Udemy. So while most learners getting certifications today do have a college degree, this doesn't necessarily have to be the case in the future. But for me, whether college is worth the price will vary depending on the individual. But as Donna just said, what's true for everyone is that college alone won't be enough to keep up with the rapidly changing world. Everyone will need to continue to gain new skills as they advance throughout their career.
Tony, over to you. Do you mind introducing yourself and let us know where you are on this side of the debate?
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Tony Buffum. I'm the VP of HR Client Strategy at Upwork. I've been with Upwork for about 2.5 years, but prior to Upwork, I spent my career in HR, including as a CHRO of a public company. And over that period of time, I've been, so passionate, so interested in how things are changing for the way that we work, how it's changing for talent, the what the relationship for a worker to an employer looks like and how that's changing. And I get to talk to a lot of other CHROs on a regular basis. And what I'd say in terms of this issue, over the course of just my lifetime, the price of a 4-year private institution has tripled. And we've seen is the overall student loan debt just skyrocketing. So it's understandable that at the same time we see this steady decline over the past 10 years in college enrollment. And at the same time, it's easier now than ever to acquire new skills for pretty much for free on YouTube or Reddit or wherever. There's so many places where you can just develop and train yourself on new skills and then immediately go onto a talent marketplace like Upwork or the hundreds of others that have now have come online. So I do see that trend continuing. And I think it makes sense is for as much as employers just need work, and there's a massive gap that's just widening in terms of the availability of talent and skill. They're going to continue doing things like Scott mentioned, dropping these kind of old paradigm requirements and just finding the talent however they can and getting that work done.
And that's great. And so those of you who are joining us live today in the comments, let us know right away, where are you in this side of the debate? You got to hear a little bit of the intros and the panelists. You've got to hear some pros and cons. Really curious, what's keeping you up at night as you reflect on either upskilling and or going back to college? So with that, Scott, I want to turn over to you because, those of you who don't know, and we'll certainly post a link in the comments here, Udemy is at the front edge of what people are actually learning today. And so it's funny, I had the opportunity about 10 years ago to work with Josh Burson. And at the time, we were talking about a skills gap. And we didn't have the digital exhaust or ability to really understand where was that skills gap actually occurring. It was like this whole big black box. But that black box has been demystified with companies like Udemy who are actually able to go in and help us understand what are the top skills that people are learning today, how AI in particular might be transforming what we're seeing in your line of work.
Great. Absolutely. So I mentioned IT certifications earlier. They continue to blossom on our platform. And maybe perhaps to put it into perspective, last year alone, we had 10 million enrollments in IT certification courses on our platform. So massive scale of learners that know that this is important for their careers and going in and acquiring that information. This ranges from cloud computing, project management, security, certifications. Amazon Web Services leads the way. They're definitely the big player, but we see other skills emerging like Google DevOps engineer certifications, et cetera. The number two thing, development and coding. So this continues to remain in high demand as companies seek to build the products that are going to change the world. Python and Java are top skills that we see on our platform. And finally, AI. So ChatGPT launched, December of 2022? And it exploded on our platform just as it exploded in the world's consciousness. And we've seen this tremendous growth. Again, perspective, our instructors, these tens of thousands of experts around the world, now have published 1,700 courses on our platform. Learners have consumed 79 million minutes of Gen AI course material on our platform, and over 2.5 million learners are doing that. So that equates to about 6 learners enrolling in a Gen AI course on Udemy every single minute. So needless to say, in terms of emerging topics and skill trends, ChatGPT remains at the top of our list. And one other interesting thing about how AI learning is changing on our platform, if you go back for the first 6 to 8 months, everybody just needed to know, what is AI? What is it? Ethical use? How do I do prompts? What do they mean? Now what we're seeing is that AI is getting infused into skills and roles. So courses on our platform now don't just explain sales or marketing skills. They'll typically bring AI in to help learners basically understand how they can achieve those skills more quickly or effectively. So the big change is it's not just about what we would consider that traditional skill. It's about how to use AI to do that skill more effectively.
I love that. And those of you who are listening, at the Upwork Research Institute, we found right now that freelancers are actually one of the fastest growing cohorts of workers out there who are taking AI courses. So I'd love to know, if you're listening to us today, have you actually taken an AI course and what that experience has been? So Professor Murdoch, I want to go to the other side of this equation now. I think Scott gave us a really just insightful answer of what they're seeing on their platform. Again, we heard a lot of those technical skill sets. You made this really profound statement around, college education in particular is more about learning how to learn. What are you seeing in the classroom today? And maybe how are you helping, not just from a technical skill set perspective, but more from that humanities and those enduring human capabilities? Where does college play in that?
Well, I do teach in a college of education, and it's always about integrating emerging technologies into the regular practice. And my courses fill up, virtually the day they're open. So people definitely have a demand and recognize. I also think that with a general or liberal arts kind of background, you can more effectively and responsibly use things like AI and any of these new technologies when you do that. There's a lot of things you really have to think about both practically and ethically, because it's up to us to make sure that AI for good, as they say.
I love that. And I think there's so much ethical concern that's out there today with AI, and it's a balance between the technicality and then obviously the enduring human side. Tony, I want to come to you. I mean, you've been a CHRO before. You're constantly thinking about hiring. There was an interesting recent research that Matthew Boyle actually at Bloomberg recently covered that right now a lot of organizations are saying they're doing skill-based hiring, but when push comes to shoves, they're still really leaning back on that college credential as the filter. What do you advise, like from a CHRO perspective? What should they be thinking about as they really think about making sure that they're recruiting in the top talent and skills today?
There's a lot of data that shows CEOs, CHROs all want to be skills based in their design. Like there's a survey, about 90% of CEOs, CHROs say, yeah, we want a skills based design. That's how we want to identify and develop and grow and deploy talent. But only about 10% of them are actually doing it. And I think that gap is based on how hard it is to actually, map skills within your organization and then build your processes around that. When for decades, organizations are built on basically these degrees and years of experience and in roles and jobs, and not just flowing to the work with skills. So I think what's going to change, and I think what we're going to see is more of a shift to this skills-based design, because AI is going to make it really easy to do. It's going to make it really easy to, go across your whole organization, identify the skills that exist within each person and all their different jobs, and make it that mapping process that is the really big lift, make that so quick and so easy and so constant and repeatable that organizations are finally going to be able to make that step. So I think they're already moving in that direction. I think the intent is there. The capability to make it really easy and fast is evolving. And the result will be, we'll see a lot more of this skills-based work design that will make things like Scott's mentioned, certifications, universal credentials, much more of the currency that we identify and deploy and move talent.
I think that's a really good point, Tony, you bring. And Scott, I want to kind of turn it back over to you, because I think the one thing that I've been thinking about just as a researcher, and I used to actually started my career as an HR generalist. A degree was a great filter because there's so much information coming in and so many applicants coming in that it was just somewhat of an easy way, even if it was an imperfect way, to actually screen candidates. So Scott, how are you guys thinking about, from Udemy's perspective, as we start to think about really a skills-based hiring world, how do we begin to validate that?
Absolutely. And to build on what Tony was saying,
Yeah.
let's go back to those IT certifications or those professional certifications, because it's wide and broad in terms of the coverage now. There are already industry standard assessments, so individuals can take those to validate their skills. So any individual learner can come to a platform like Udemy, get their skills training. They can use assets like our practice tests that our instructors are creating to ensure they're ready to go take that final exam from the vendor or from the official exam provider. Then they can go do that. And companies already trust these assessments. However, to your really good sort of prod and to Tony's point, that still leaves many other skills that aren't covered by certifications. So to solve that on Udemy, we offer certain solutions like Udemy Pro, which provides assessments and hands-on learning across a range of other technical skills, programming, security, and soon actually AI. And this will help companies train employees faster, but also to provide assessments to validate the skills development. And we're now looking to use the content on our platform to essentially, we're unlimited because our content is so expansive on our platform, to be able to expand these services to virtually any topic going forward.
See, I do think that's so cool. I know Joe Fuller at Harvard, he's done so much research on just how there's so many hidden workers that are out there today because we have used the traditional pathway of college education, and that, some people are not able, that's not feasible for them. So I am excited to think about how do we begin to democratize the access to education, and then therefore democratize access for some of these filtering and credentials that do still need to take place as we think about moving people, back into the workforce. So, Professor Murdoch, I just want to take it back over to you. In your mind, how does higher education as a whole play in solving the skills gap? I think there's a lot of good reasons for higher education, and I think it's part of the future of work. So where do you see the future of higher education?
Especially since you and I spent so much time there. I
Yeah,
think that
exactly.
there's a lot of things. I'm as I said, I'm all about lifelong learning and certifications and keep going. I don't think we should ever stop. I think there's a serendipity that comes with being with other people, that and ideas and things that come with collaborative work in a school that you don't get when you're on your own doing a certificate. Is it a great add-on to learn a skill? Absolutely. But as far as collaboration, exchange of ideas, thoughts you wouldn't have come up with, that's really great. That's a direction I never would have thought of to look at. That's a real loss if people stop getting degrees, I think.
Well, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I want to just end us on a round robin real quick. The first question, and Tony, I'm going to start with you. What's the one thing you'd go tell Gen Z to learn today as we think about the upcoming future workforce that I was just reminded is going to be the majority of the workforce in the next couple of years? What should be top of mind for Gen Z today?
To me, it's experience.
Yeah.
It's figure out how you can get access to some kind of work, some kind of job. There's so many great new HR technologies that are coming on board to give high school students or college students direct access to real work experience while they're in kind of these micro dose forms. So I think anything that they can do to just get some of that experience and see how they can apply what they're learning to the real world is the kind of experience that they need to get in order to be able to figure out what they want to do and figure out what the best path forward is for them.
Love that advice. Scott, what would you tell Gen Z today? What's the one thing they should be learning?
Yeah, I love that advice too. Experience is everything. I'm gonna quote Donna earlier in the discussion. Learn to learn. Whether you go to college or not, the half-life of skills is increasingly short, and I've seen that the survey you mentioned earlier, and I think it's no longer years; it's measured in months. AI is proving that the world is changing so quickly, and the same is true in business skills. So the sooner that everyone or each of you out there create a culture of learning for yourself, the more opportunities you're going to open up as you progress in your career. And of course, just because I have to, when you're ready to learn those skills, come to the world's largest provider for professional skills. That is Udemy.
I love it. Professor Murdoch, what would you tell Gen Z today?
Scott was right. Learn how you learn best. I agree. Experiential learning, hands-on learning is the best, and that's why some companies who offer stretch assignments, they might call them, where for this much of your time, you can work in another department part of the week. It's been proven that if you give people the development opportunity, that they'll stick around longer. Retention is better. But learning on your own, just learn how you learn best. Everyone learns best a different way. Some will say, oh, I don't get anything out of watching little videos. I need to actually be right next to it. Okay, well, get yourself in that situation.
Well, thank you all who joined us today. Thank you so much for the panelists. I appreciate all of your time and just the expertise that you shared with us and with the LinkedIn community today. I think to sum it up from a hot take perspective, is college worth it? As with almost all research questions, the answer is it likely depends. But I think what we've all agreed upon, learning is absolutely critical today, and you have to keep at it. So I hope all of you at the LinkedIn community and those of you who joined us keep learning. The future is going to be wild, but really excited to have, higher ed, companies like Upwork and Udemy who are all forging together a broader ecosystem to make the future of work more successful for all. So thank you all, and thank you for joining us today.